We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall live in peace someday.
All right. Welcome, everybody. To begin, I would like to call Lorelei, an Indigenous elder, to do the opening.
We're not holding our hands up in surrender. We're actually holding our hands up to greet you and welcome you. And I lift my hands even higher to lift you up with friendship and love and respect. And I give thanks to the people of this territory for allowing us to live, work, and play each and every day on their unceded traditional territorial land, the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh. I give thanks to each and every one of you for being here. And more importantly, I give thanks for our ancestors that are among us, for without them, we wouldn't be here today. I give thanks for all of those that have worked all the times from immemorial till now so that we can stand and do ceremony like this. I give thanks to Mother Earth for allowing us to be in such a good space today. And I give thanks to all of those that are behind the scenes, that are organizing, that do this work, maybe unseen, but hard work to get these events looking so smooth and so easy for us that are participating. And with that, I say, Wado, all my relations. Thank you. Want to say? Yes.
Just leave it at that. Say any words.
Just introduce yourself.
Okay.
Whatever you'd like to say.
Okay. Hi. Hi. Thank you. Okinapi. My name is Red Elk Singing Woman. I am from Siksika Nation on my father's side and Cree Nation from Saskatchewan on my father's side. English, Norwegian, Danish, Austrian on my mother's side. It's a blessing to be here today and to share in this sacred space with our elder, our youth here, and all of you. And I feel our ancestors are guiding us all, and the love and the peace that is present here is just so humbling to be a part of. Thank you for being here, open mind and open heart, all my relations.
Just come and say your name when you're back up.
Hello. I don't know if you can hear me. I don't have it. Oh, it's too short. Okay. Hi. My Indian name's Miss Hummingbird Woman. My English name's Cassandra Simeon, and I'm honored to be here as a youth, and also that I present, or I don't know how you say it, but I'm a youth representative for Raycam, and I'm honored to be here to represent them. There you go.
Hi, Don.
Oh yeah, sorry. And my nation, I'm from Cherokee, Shuswap, Okanagan, and Haida on my father's side.
Oh, I think we're good. Yeah. Okay, so good morning, everybody. Welcome to Let Peace Be Their Memorial, a wreath-laying ceremony to recognize the overlooked victims of war. Today's ceremony, our fourth, is presented by Vancouver Peace Poppies, the Multi-Faith Action Society, and the BC Humanist Association. We'd like to thank the City of Vancouver and Vancouver Parks for their financial and moral support in waiving the permit fees for this special ceremony. Can we give them a hand? Thank you so much. And we're delighted to have Vancouver Parks Board Commissioner John Irwin here today as well as Vancouver Kingsway MP Don Davies. Now may I ask Commissioner Irwin to lay our first wreath on behalf of the Vancouver Board of Parks and Recreation. Thank you. Thank you, John. And now MP Don Davies will lay a wreath on behalf of the people of Vancouver Kingsway. Thank you, Don. Oops. Nope. Okay. Oh, that's perfect. Thank you so much. Now I'd like to invite representatives of the three host groups to say a few words. Please welcome Louise Mangan, a board member with the Multi-Faith Action Society.
Hello, I'm honored to be with you today. And I bring a special greeting from Multi-Faith Action Society, and on behalf of the board, I would like to extend our heartfelt appreciation for all our lives and forever, for all who have given the ultimate sacrifice of their lives for peace and for harmony. And we wish also to express our continuing and ongoing sorrow for the lives that are lost, the well-being that is denied, and for the loss of healthy world and environment to warfare and to violence. In our lifetime, grassroots organizations worldwide are opening intentional and alternative pathways to mutual understanding and solidarity. And we are deepening, all of us here today, in our awareness of the global concentrations of wealth and of power, of military and nuclear armaments, of economic colonization and exploitation, profound inequality, and the pollution and rapid destruction of the earth. It is the work of our time, and probably the most daring work of our lives, to work together, both locally and globally, Indigenous peoples and all the rest of the peoples resident here, to care for one another and to care for all that lives, for every ecosystem, including human beings. Environmentally, spiritually, socially, economically, at every level of governance, this is our time. This is our time to collaborate in the shared work of protecting, honoring, and restoring the planet, and of cultivating resilient and compassionate communities everywhere. May peace be the memorial of those gone before us. May peace be our memorial for those yet to come, and may peace prevail on earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise, for those very stirring words. And now J.B. Bell, President of the BC Humanist Association, will say a few words. Ah, there you are. Are you good?
Thank you. Apologies for the feedback there. I'm the president of the BC Humanist Society, Association, and bring greetings on behalf of the board. It's a privilege to see this large of a gathering here and a little nervous making. In In thinking about this, I think of two essential themes, besides the great grief for the incredible numbers that I have to contemplate when we talk about the victims of war. And those are war itself and humanity. War, as generals like to tell us, is changing. And here I think I can give a perspective that might be a little bit unusual in what I see here at home and in my home country of the United States. War starts with hate, very prominently. There are other reasons people give, but that certainly helps a lot. And what I see is a change from the battle lines that were clearly drawn in World War I, when the casualties were 60% military, to today when they're around 90%, as I learned from studying this event from last year. And we have what we call terror. This has all come very close to home. We've seen the terrible destruction in synagogues, churches, temples of Muslims and other faiths, and shootings in schools, public gatherings of what should be a fun ethnic festival, gay clubs where people go to relax and connect and maybe find love. And these have been attacked, and many have died. And it doesn't seem to come from any one enemy. There's no one we can point to and draw battle lines with, even if that were our wish. Instead, I'll familiarize you with a disturbing term that I've come upon called stochastic terrorism. It's, will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest writ large, when you command a great audience, as our Twitterer-in-chief does, and opine on people in a way that dehumanizes them, when in your audience, as you should well be aware, there are those who would kill, then you can count on them doing that at least sometimes. How do we fight an enemy like this? Well, I think we've heard already, we need to look to our humanity. As a humanist, people often ask me, well, what does that mean? You believe in humans. Here we are, obviously, we're real. It means believing in humans as the measure of our morality and human welfare, and regarding us as one family, as many traditions teach. That's what we have to rely on. Of course, I don't think anyone here is giving out hateful rhetoric on weekends on their computer. If you are, please stop. But we may know someone. I knew someone in the military in the United States, and he fell prey, I'd like to say, to white nationalism. And unfortunately, I cut him off. I think now that was not the right response. Everyone has to give according to the resources they have, and it's emotionally incredibly hard, especially if you're in one of these vulnerable groups, to engage with these people. So those of us who do have the resources and the kind of privilege that I represent as a white male, it's incredibly important, especially to hold the people in our communities to account and say this is not acceptable. It's not okay to make that sexist joke. It's not okay to call Muslims that name. It's not okay to pass legislation to tell them that they can't express their religion in their wardrobe, which unfortunately has popular support in Quebec. It's an upsetting topic. I feel a little worked up right now. And writing yesterday and today, I really wanted to be able to say, and here's the hope. But a friend of mine has written a nice thesis, which I hope becomes a book someday, called Better Than Hope. Sometimes you just keep going anyway, and you have to meet with other people who do the same. So it is encouraging to me, and it lifts my spirits to look around here and see people here who are here just to say, no, this isn't the way we want to do things. This isn't how we want to treat our brothers and sisters in humanity, our only home that we have in this universe, or our animal cousins as well. War is part of human nature, but peace and reason and sociability are our better natures. And I hope that this message keeps going out there and that everyone here can keep carrying it in their hearts and in their voices and in amplifying the voices of those who cannot speak to make that a reality. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really beautiful, and it's nice to have something concrete that we can do to stand up every time we hear a racist or sexist remark, and not to let things go by, so we can live our lives establishing peace and justice and respect. And now, Teresa Gagne, co-founder of Vancouver Peace Poppies, will be our next speaker.
Well, as usual, I had grand ideas about the speech that I was somehow going to find the time to write that didn't quite happen in the midst of all the other things. But, so I'm going to say some things that some of you have already heard, previous things. To start with, I wanted to say that both the White Poppy campaign, which is very old, having started in Britain back in the 1930s, but which we started in Vancouver in 2008, has grown tremendously in popularity across Canada and has been a great source of hope and encouragement to me, because I think as someone who's spent most of my life in the peace movement in some form or other, and you spend a lot of time going to demonstrations and standing around and handing out leaflets that people don't read and taking leaflets that you're not going to read, and just the contacts that I've made with people across Canada, asking for poppies, asking how we do it, people that I meet on the bus who ask me, what does a white poppy mean, has been really such a heartening thing to me. And we started 12 years ago with 50 handmade poppies. This year, we expect to have distributed close to 6,000 across Canada. And the White Poppy campaign and our ceremony today have really the three main shared goals. One is to encourage Canadians to broaden their focus of Remembrance Day to include the civilians who are estimated now to make up 90% of the victims of contemporary wars, to challenge the beliefs, values, and institutions that make us accept war as inevitable, as just human nature. That's the way things have always been, and it's unrealistic to think differently. And to urge our governments to promote and fund effective non-military means of conflict resolution. I think those are really the key things, and there's many other reasons to be here or to wear a white poppy, maybe for a particular person or for the environment or whatever, but I think those are really, to me, the key things. So I first conceived of this ceremony in 2016, and after a number of years of doing the white poppies, I just felt that Vancouver seemed like Vancouverites would be open to a different way of remembering than had been done previously, and also something that represented a broader perspective and included the experiences of immigrant Canadians who, of course, have many of them very strong connections with the impacts of war and violence on their lives and their families. And really, it's been, again, amazing and heartening to see how the ceremony has grown and the support that we have had from the community and people attending. And I just want to say that we have not received a single negative remark, complaint, anybody saying, oh, that's inappropriate. Nothing but we have received but positive encouragement. And I really think that Vancouver is really setting an example for municipalities across the country that Canadians are open. We can do things differently. There's nothing disrespectful in broadening the focus of Remembrance Day in this way. This year, we established a Remembrance for Peace committee with teams to help deal with the many tasks that underpin an event like this. And it's been a great success and certainly taken a lot of load off Denis and I, who were doing most of the work in the early years. And but it would be even better with the help and input of more people. So if you feel that you could help in any way, particularly with the planning, the contacting people in advance of the event, please sign one of the Count Me In sheets in the info tent over at the side. I'll make sure after this that they're actually there. And give us your contact information to help us to build this ceremony and keep this day. So I'm just going to say a little bit more. The first Armistice Day was 100 years ago on November 11th, 1919, a year after the end of a war so huge and terrible that it was regarded by many as a war to end war. People thought surely governments and nations had learned from that horrific and wasteful experience. But instead, during those 10 decades, there have been over 300 more wars, close to 200 million people killed, and every year on November 11th, we get together and remember. But really, what have we accomplished in 100 years of remembering? We could have used that torch. Okay, we could have used that torch that Don McCrae and his comrades threw to us to light a way to a world of peace. Instead, we've used it as a blowtorch of death and destruction. Is that really what we think they wanted? There are lots of reasons to be against war, that it's immoral, that it's wasteful, but really the inarguable one is that it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. The reasons were given by our governments and the media for why we have to enter or support particular conflicts are that it will make the world safer, spread democracy, increase human rights, or protect vulnerable populations. But they aren't valid reasons. If we look at the recent effects of almost 30 years of war in the Middle East and ask, are Canada and the US safer? Is the Middle East safer? Is the world safer? No. Is it more democratic? No. So all those deaths, all those refugees have destabilized the world and resulted in growing nationalism and less democracy. I think it's time we have to raise our voices to say, your way isn't working. And people say, well, if you don't have another solution, how can you criticize what we're doing? War's always been there. And it's true, we don't have necessarily a solution how ISIS can be removed from being a world problem, how oppression can be stopped. But I'm going to offer you this analogy. Suppose we were spending billions of dollars on a drug to treat cancer, and we looked at the evidence and we found out that not only did it not work, but that it actually made people sicker. What I hope would happen is this. We'd say, okay, pull that drug off the market. We're going to stop funding prescriptions for that drug because it's harmful. Even if we didn't have a better drug, we'd put more money into research into finding an effective treatment. It's the same kind of thing here. We have to take war off the shelf. We need governments to invest in finding something that will work, into training people who can go into a situation or a country and hear what the different sides have to say, learn what the roots of the problem are, and talk with them about how they think they could come to live together and work together on a solution. We need to be training around the world hundreds and thousands of people with those skills and having them available, not a peacekeeping force, not training for military and the police, but a mediation resource that is available to communities and countries to deal with the difficult situations that are always going to happen. We have to commit ourselves to counting all the costs of military conflict, economic, psychological, humanitarian, and environmental. Because make no mistake, war is an environmental disaster on an epic scale. The military bootprint is a huge contributor to global warming. There are still lands in Germany and Libya that are so contaminated by chemicals or by landmines from World War II that they are unusable for farming. Food security is a huge issue. Depleted uranium. There are so many ways that war is an environmental disaster, and the money that could be spent on turning our economies around is instead going down the drain in funding war. So I just think the other thing that I'd like everybody to do today is to try to help to build that connection in people's mind and bring some of the wonderful power and youth and enthusiasm of the environmental movement to join us in this equally important work for world peace. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Teresa. You're a real hero. Now singers Roger Holstock and Kathy Griffin will now perform a song called Cousins by Ellen Vanderhoven.
Mic okay for you, Kev?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Those were inspiring words. And thank you for all the work you and Denis have been doing, keeping this going and bringing us together here. Maybe you can tell from the title of this song, Cousins, that it actually continues a theme that's been brought up a couple of times here at least. And that is that we're all related, and all those divisions between countries and peoples are artificial, and they've been promoted by people who want to exploit them. So the theme becomes pretty apparent in this song. The cousins live so far away, we do not see them every day. Across the cold Atlantic Ocean, that is where the cousins play. Upon the beach at Silver Strand, my toes curled into Irish sand gave to me the crazy notion they might swim to this far land.
Nearest
Cousins wrote to her, they said our land is lost to war. We had to make for Tripoli, we could not stay there anymore. The bombs have pulled the buildings down, grass and rubble strewn around. We looked for safety on the sea, shelter on a foreign ground. Some cousins live their lives in peace, while some must brave the angry seas. This country is where people come to make new lives, raise families. The cousins come from far away, we may see them any day. They cross the cold Atlantic Ocean to find the place where children play. They come to us from many lands, we reach out to grasp their hands. Friendship is a simple notion everyone may understand. Some cousins live their lives in peace, while some must brave the angry seas. This country is where people come to make new lives, raise families. When all the world is on the move, will we yet open-hearted prove and welcome those tossed by the storm? With warm hearts full of cousins' love, we welcome those tossed by the storm. With warm hearts full of cousins' love.
That was very beautiful. Thank you so much. For our featured speaker today, we are honored to have Fazane Keita, a former child soldier from the Sierra Leone Civil War. With his partner, Ava Vanderstaren, Fazane started the Innocence Lost Foundation, whose mission is to build rehabilitation centers to provide education, skills training, and therapy to former child soldiers in Sierra Leone. Please welcome Fasane Keita. There we are. Oh, welcome. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you all here today. My name is Fasine. It's not a common name in Canada, but if you want to remember it, think about fascinate without the T. It's an honor to be here today with you to commemorate and remember not only the brave soldiers who fought for our freedom, but also for the civilians who are being killed, civilians who have been killed in wars around the world. From Africa all the way to Iraq, civilians are being killed in Syria with impunity. Civilians have been bombarded in Yemen and are still being bombarded in Yemen with impunity. Now imagine if you're a kid and a bomb, say you go out to fetch water, and a bomb come and land on your house and kill your parent. Do you think it takes a lot of convincing to convince that kid to fight? Definitely not. In countries around the world, children are being indoctrinated and recruited and used as child soldiers. There are over 300 child soldiers in the world, 300,000. And that's just an estimate, because when I was a kid, when I was a child soldier, no one would have come and count me where I was. So those are just the figures we know. Children are indoctrinated and used as combatants in the front lines. Sometimes they're used as sex slaves, spies, cooks, servants. Children are being indoctrinated in certain parts of the world and they are used as suicide bombers. I was raised in Sierra Leone. If you've seen the movie Blood Diamond, it's about Sierra Leone. We gained independence in 1961. Following independence, Sierra Leone was governed by corrupt dictators who mismanaged the natural resources of the country. So not only did we suffer years of colonial exploitation, we went from that straight to dictators who mismanaged all the natural resources and left the economy in ruins. As a result, civil servants weren't getting paid, teachers weren't getting paid. There was a lot of discontent in the country. And then there comes Fode Sanko, the rebel leader, with a small band of rebels. And then he said, if people fight for him, he's going to fix all the problems of the country. Just like a crooked politician will tell you, if you vote for me, I'm going to fix all your problems. Instead of telling you, if you vote for me, I just want power because I like power. And as people started fighting for Fode Sanko, it didn't take long for people to realize he was worse than the government he was fighting. So people stopped fighting for him. As a result, when he started suffering to recruit soldiers, so he started attacking towns. He would kill the grown-ups and kidnap the kids and take them to camp and train them and use them and unleash them on the next town, and they'll go kill the grown-ups in that town and kidnap all the children and bring them to the camp and train them. And the training was just how to put together an AK-47, clean it, how to shoot, and then the rest they expect you to learn it as you go. I was taken right before my 9th birthday. And when I was taken to the camp in the jungle. And they taught us how to dismantle an AK-47, how to put it together, how to fight. And then they indoctrinated us before they sent us to battle. And the indoctrination was simple. It was, we have all these natural resources in the country. Your parents' generation didn't fight the corrupt government that were exploiting this country. That's why you have to fight, not only for you, but for the generation to come. And as a kid, you believe that, and I believe that. But when we started fighting and I started burying my friends and I became part of the organization, I realized that I'm just a pawn. I'm just being used, just like all of us. So I escaped the rebels. And then I returned back. But what war does is scatter families. So I wasn't able to find my families. And I was hungry. And I needed a place to stay. So I went and joined the army because they can provide you that. They can provide you a place to stay. So unlike the rebels, the army never forced to recruit children, but they just give you, they show you the opportunities that you can get and tell you can have food if you join us. And so kids join them, and I joined them. And I was with them when I finally realized my uncle has returned back to Tongafield and he started his business. So I went back to my uncle and I went back to school. And then I realized being a civilian was worse than when I was with the soldiers, because civilians were the ones that were being killed. Civilians are attacked by both sides. Civilians are caught up in the crossfire. And when the soldiers want to take a town, instead of just going in, they will just bombard the town for hours. So for every one enemy, they kill 50 or 60 civilians' bodies are laid on the ground. And I realized that was even harder than fighting. So that's why when I found out about the white poppy and making room to commemorate civilians, it spoke deeply to me and it meant a lot to me. Sometimes it feels overwhelming. There's wars everywhere. It's like, what do I do? Where do I even start? White supremacy is on the rise. Racial discrimination, sexual discrimination, gender discrimination, religious discrimination. People are making money off of that, just like people are making money off of war. Because the war in Sierra Leone, we didn't make any weapons, but we had weapons in abundance. And then I think, but maybe it's better now than Second World War. But at the same time, the planet wasn't warming up like back then. And because of climate change that the media is not talking a lot about, there are countries around the world like Nigeria, Niger, Chad, where cattle herders who have been herding their cattle on the piece of land for over 400 years and now are moving further inland because of all the flooding. Now they're encroaching on the land of the farmers who are fighting back, and civilians are getting killed in that process. So when it feels overwhelming, there was a time when I just didn't want to do anything, and then I realized maybe I should just start opening doors for people. Because before that, I would open doors for older ladies, and when I saw a young guy, like, nah, you open your own door. But then when I started opening doors, I realized there are more people opening doors in this city. Sometimes you have to beat them to it. Like, no, I am going to open that door. So when it feels overwhelming, sometimes just smile at a stranger. Just be kind to a stranger. Come together as we have come together as a community to commemorate the victims of war. So I thank all the organizers of this event, and I thank you all for coming here today. Thank you very much.
Oh, Lord, thank you so much. That was so beautiful. Oh, Kathy and Roger, come up and sing us another song, Where I Stand by Linda Allen.
Now it's in the right place. Such eloquence. Thank you so much.
So this next song is called Where I Stand by Linda Allen. And Linda Allen wrote this about a group of women in the United States during the 60s and 70s. There was a group of women who would wear black, and they would, every Friday, they would march to City Hall, to the city halls in cities across the states to protest the Vietnam War. Linda Allen wrote about this. It's called Where I Stand. Woman standing in the rain on a cold November day. In her hand she held a sign saying, war is not the way. By her side her child asked, why do you do the things you do? Once you know I did it for me, now I'm doing it for you. So you will know where I stand. You will know who I am. You will know where I stand if it all falls down. Gray were the stones of the courthouse steps. Gray was the autumn sky. Gray were the faces of the passing people looking down as they walked by. Black and white was the news that morning as the bombs began to fly. Red as blood was the sky above, then the child again asked why. So you will know where I stand. You will know who I am. You will know where I stand if it all falls down. Easy chorus. Used to be I believed I could change some hearts with a handmade sign. Now I know I gotta keep on so that others can't change mine. Must we sacrifice the poor to give wealth to the few? Hold a sign, hold a vision, I'm leaving it up to you. So you will know where I stand. You will know who I am. You will know where I stand if it all falls down. You will know where I stand. You will know who I am. You will know where I stand if it all falls down. Don't let it all fall down. Don't let it all fall down.
Thank you so much. Wait a minute here. Now, Ken Klosky will read from A Pirouette and Gone by E.D. Blodgett.
Hello all. Sad occasion, really. Just to say, I'm here replacing the irreplaceable Chris Levinson, who is in the hospital with knee surgery, but he personally approved this poem by E.D. or Ted Blodgett, who was American initially, and along with scores of other poets came to Canada during the Vietnam War. And this poem is essentially a reaction to My Lai, and also a reaction to children being killed in war all around the world, following Fazinet's speech to which he made reference. This is from a pirouette and gone. How soon they disappear, the eyes from which the light in piercing flashes fell, only to return in memory, almost, and seen as they go out. Not even stars can take their lightness on, but are just stars that fall in dark. The eyes that they possessed float on tides of blood, and each of them go past as lanterns in a foreign town, commemorating those who died in sudden fire. Eyes that have become a story that we tell ourselves to save the dark. Some of them are just forgotten where they lie in heaps upon the ground. If you saw them move, you might have said that they were only playing dead. But no one saw them at all, their faces almost effaced, and no one remembers where they are along the roads. Birds pass over them and barely see them there. What will cover them besides the falling rain in such an emptiness? What tree will give them shade? No prayers are said for them, and no one calls their names. If time were to implode, it would happen here, and nothing but the wind would carry what was left of their bare bones away, just as dust. Some were taken so swiftly they did not know where they had been, if they had been at all with us. Some were taken up by fire, and some by stone, and some by steel that left them lying broken on the ground where they had walked. No one believes this could be the way that such small beings leave the world. And in the darkness, stones are heard to cry, and the stars, and nothing in between.
Thank you so much. We'll now begin placing our 11 universal wreaths. These handcrafted wreaths were custom designed to recognize the frequently and deliberately overlooked victims of war, those groups whose suffering recurs across conflicts, continents, and centuries. Our first wreath today was made by students at Henry Hudson Elementary School. So stand right up there, everyone can see it. To commemorate children killed, injured, or orphaned by war. The background circle of greenery is made by the handprints of the children at this nearby school. Two local high school students, Anya Murray and Illy Mendoza Mayers, are you both from Lord Byng? From Lord Byng Secondary School, are joining us today to lay our wreath. So you can go and lay the wreath now. Thank you so much. The next wreath is to recognize the strength and commitment of those who've dared to resist war and the persecution they often face. Can you go right up to the front? Thank you. Okay, all right. The strength and commitment of those who've dared to resist war and the persecution they often face, whether motivated by religious faith, secular moral values, or a practical belief that war is wasteful and ineffective, we honor their actions and their memory. The wreath will be placed by George, one of our volunteers. He comes from a country where there's still an involuntary military draft, and from which there's still a threat of that. He chose not to serve, regardless of the consequences. He, like many others, did not want to be trained how to kill people. He believes that there are better ways to serve one's community, one's country, and humanity as a whole. Thank you, George. Okay, come on. This wreath, with its beautiful but damaged poppies reflects the challenges faced by survivors and victims suffering from post-traumatic stress. Insomnia, flashbacks, and anxiety are normal and sometimes healthy responses to violence or trauma, but some survivors are left with severe, long-lasting symptoms and need ongoing treatment to help them cope. It can be hard even for Canadian veterans to get the necessary help. And it's harder still for civilians living in refugee camps and war zones or refugees fleeing from them. This year, we are pleased to have vast volunteers, Sadiq Mohibi and Abbas Khoshal, to lay the wreath. VAST assists refugees and other newcomers who have endured torture, trauma, and political violence through counseling, documentation, education, and referrals. Thank you very much. Thank you. The next wreath is for Indigenous victims of genocide and cultural destruction. From first contact through to the present day, Indigenous peoples worldwide have been and continue to be victims of both overt and covert wars on their cultures and existence. Our wreath of local red cedar is symbolically wound with invasive English ivy, a plant infamous for suppressing and killing native vegetation. On the attached leaves are some of the brutal tactics Indigenous peoples have faced. This wreath will be jointly laid by local First Nations elder Ravenwing, Lorelei Hawkins, with her granddaughter, Miss Hummingbird Woman, Cassandra Simeon, and Dr. Chandu Claver, an Indigenous Igorot physician and human rights activist from northern Philippines. In 2006, Dr. Claver survived an assassination attempt that took the life of his wife. Thank you very much.
You want it down?
Yeah, down a bit. Thanks. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oopsie. Thank you. The red and white poppy buds on this wreath symbolize the precarious position of child soldiers. Neither civilian nor military, their childhoods are cut violently short. Even those who escape may suffer lasting harm from the acts they've seen. This wreath is being laid by Eva van der Staren, director and co-founder of the Innocence Lost Foundation, which is working to bring attention to the plight of child soldiers everywhere and to improve the lives of former child soldiers in Sierra Leone. Thank you, Ava. The medical aid wreath features shocking photos of bombed ambulances and poppies whose centers bear the emblems of the International Red Cross Network. Those emblems are supposed to guarantee protection and neutrality, but all too often they become targets instead. We are pleased to have Holly Heath, a registered nurse who works at St. Paul's Hospital, laying this wreath for us. Thank you, Holly. The next wreath is dedicated to women raped and victimized in wartime, crimes as old and terrible as war itself. Its symbols recognize both women's strength and their vulnerability. Conflict zones and even refugee camps can be exceptionally dangerous for women who may be assaulted or pressured to trade sexual services for food, safe passage, or other necessities for themselves and their families. Here to lay our wreath today is Red Elk Singing Woman, Darla Blackkettle, from Siksika Blackfoot Nation, which is presently located outside of the place which is now called Calgary. Thank you so much. The red and white poppy buds on this wreath. Sorry, excuse me. Okay, here we go. Got it. The next wreath represents refugees fleeing conflict. This is the largest group of civilian war victims and the one most in the news these days. Canada gains from the skills and diversity they bring, but their homelands suffer a corresponding loss. Even the ones lucky enough to find safe haven carry with them the heartbreak of leaving their homes and often their families. This year we have Diana G., a local pastor at Faith Community Christian Church, which has sponsored a family of Syrian refugees. Thank you so much. This wreath mourns the lost potential of an estimated 50 million children whose education is disrupted by war. Some of the luckier ones end up in our local schools, but others may spend their entire youth in refugee camps with no access to formal schooling. The wreath will be placed by Hans Gerhard Fast, who was not able to complete grade 1 in his hometown because he had to flee to Denmark during World War II. During his time in a Danish refugee camp from 1945 to 48, he was able to do some more schooling, finishing grade 5. After moving to South America, he completed 1 year of schooling in Spanish, but at age 13, his formal schooling ended because he had to work to help his family survive. Thank you. Thank you so much. This oil-soaked wreath represents the environmental devastation caused by war. The huge military bootprint is a major contributor to global warming and one we should remember when discussing local pipeline and tanker issues. Patricia Plackett, chair of the Suzuki Elders, will place it on behalf of the David Suzuki Foundation. The foundation is a leading Canadian environmental nonprofit organization which empowers people to take action in their communities on the environmental challenges we collectively face. Thank you so much. Our final universal wreath is labeled for peace, because in addition to mourning what has been lost to war, we are also here to show our commitment to work for peace and a better world for all. Do you want to move up just a tiny bit? This hopeful and determined wreath with its colorful doves will be placed by Dr. Ken Christie, program head of the Human Security and Peacebuilding Master's Program at Royal Roads University in Victoria, BC. Thank you so much. Before we move into the community wreath laying, I'd like to invite Roger and Kathy up one more time to sing Te Regalo para el Niño by the Salvadorian poet Oswaldo Escobar Velado.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I'd like to read you the translation of this. This song is from El Salvador, so it's in Spanish. It's called Regalo para el Niño, which means a gift for a child. I give you an illuminated peace, grapes of peace and sparrows, a Holland perfumed of honey and California apricots. I give you Asia without a bloody Korea, a Korea in blossom, another in buds, an America seasoned with fruits, and a world of melon sugar. I give you peace in its pure flower. I give you a carnation for your little baby hand. And in your shaky dreams, I leave you peace for your infant world, dismayed by the sight of death. I give you an illuminated peace.
And it's been a real privilege to be part of this beautifully organized celebration.
Te regalo una paz iluminada, un racimo de paz y de gorriones, una Holanda de mieses aromadas, y California de melocotones, una Jacin Corea ensangrentada, una Corea en flor o tren botones, una American fruto sazonada, y un mundo con azúcar de melones. Te regalo la paz y su fortuna. Te regalo un clavel meditabundo para tu blanca mano de criatura. Y en tu sueño que tiembla estremecido, hoy te dejo la paz sobre tu mundo, de niño por la muerte sorprendido. Hoy te dejo la paz sobre tu mundo, de niño por la muerte sorprendido. Una Jacin Corea ensangrentada, una Corea en flor o tren botones, un American fruto sazonada, y un mundo con azúcar de melones. Te regalo la paz iluminada, un signo de paz y de gorriones, una Holanda de mieses aromadas, y California de melocotones, una Jacin Corea ensangrentada, una Corea en flor o tren botones, un American fruto sazonada, y un mundo con azúcar de melones. Te regalo la paz iluminada.
Gosh, that was a beautiful song. If you ever feel like you're losing hope, you just need to remember that there's poets in the world who can still think of such lovely gifts to give children. So here we're going to go with the community wreaths. War is both a universal and particular tragedy. This next section is an opportunity for local community groups to lay their own wreaths in memory of victims of specific wars or conflict events. We try to be inclusive and reach out to as many different groups as possible, but it's harder for us as outsiders to make connections and find the right contact person. To get the word out more widely, we need your help. If there's a group you think should be laying a wreath, please ask them to contact us. Or add your name to our yellow Count Me In sheet and volunteer to help contact community groups next year. Now, our first wreath today honors the victims of the Syrian civil war. Yes, lovely. The Syrian civil war, which began in 2011 as part of the Arab Spring demonstrations and continues to this day. Hundreds of thousands of people have been killed or injured by bombs, bullets, and chemical weapons. Over 4 million people have been forced to relocate, and 2 million Syrians have fled the country as refugees. Our wreath is being placed by Patil Frundijan, an Armenian Syrian whose family were sponsored to come to Canada in 2016 by Faith Christian Community Church in Dunbar. Thank you so much. Our next wreath is laid in memory of the 6 million Jews who perished. Come along. Come right up to the very front here, okay, so that everyone can see your lovely wreath. Let's move this back a tiny bit. Okay. Okay. This wreath is laid in memory of the 6 million Jews who perished in the Nazi Holocaust of World War II. Laying it today is Rita Askelrod, who is a child survivor of the Holocaust, born in Romania. She is the past president and a current board member of the Vancouver Holocaust Education Center. She's dedicated to the mission of the center, which is the promotion of anti-racism, social justice, and genocide awareness. So you want to place the wreath down? Thank you, Rita. Thank you, Rita. Oops, sorry. Yemen is currently embroiled in a brutal civil war fueled by outside forces. More than 5,000 children and 3,500 women were killed by airstrikes, and almost 700,000 cases of cholera were recorded in the first 9 months of 2019. This country is in chaos, and recent reports suggest that up to 12 million people are at risk of starvation due to the war. For their sakes, we are grateful to have Shakir Al-Abadi to represent the Yemeni Canadian Society of Vancouver by placing a wreath. Thank you so much. This wreath. This wreath commemorates an estimated 2 million civilian victims of the Vietnam War, as well as the roughly 800,000 boat people who fled its chaotic aftermath. Mr. Nam Nguyen, a Vietnamese senior from Britannia Community Center, is here to lay the wreath. Having survived the violence of the Vietnam War, they are here to lay this wreath and to pray for peace in the world. Thank you so much. Gosh, it's an honor to have all these experienced, wonderful people come up to laying these wreaths. This wreath represents the plight of Palestinians. Now, you really do need to stand up farther in the front and make sure that everybody can see it. Thank you. Represents the plights of Palestinians who for decades have been trapped by ongoing hostilities between their people and the Israeli government. For the people of Palestine, this has led to an apartheid system of their lives, crumbling infrastructure, severe limitations on their movement, an inability to find jobs, and a lack of official recognition or support from the international community. Today, a third-generation Palestinian refugee, Serene El Nashar, will be placing this wreath. And she's asked me to read this short Palestinian poem. I've seen the invisible, heard the inaudible, eaten the inedible, and lived the unbelievable. Thank you so much.
Alpha.
Okay, yes. Go up forward there. Good for you. Good for you. Okay. Oh my goodness, where are we? This wreath is dedicated to victims of Japanese imperial war crimes in Asia before and during World War II. It's being laid by Martha Wong and Lawrence Chan, representing the BC Association for Learning and Preserving the History of World War II in Asia. ALPHA's mission is to foster awareness of an often overlooked aspect of World War II history in the interest of furthering the values of justice, peace, and reconciliation, both for survivors of the past and for those who shape the historical narratives of the present and future. Thank you so much. The next wreath, and go right up to the front and just turn it a little bit so everyone can see it. Thank you. The next wreath is in memory of the hundreds of thousands of victims of the Allied nations' atomic bombing of Hiroshima on August 6th and Nagasaki on August 9th, 1945, and the victims of the over 2,000 nuclear weapons tests and nuclear power accidents around the world. It is being dedicated by Satoko Oko Norimatsu on behalf of local Hiroshima A-bomb survivor Sachi Komura Rummel. 8-year-old Sachi was playing in her schoolyard less than 4 kilometers from the epicenter. She survived unharmed, but lost her father to radiation poisoning. Hang on. Thank you very much. This wreath is placed to honor the people of Iraq who have suffered under decades of war and violent military rule. Currently, there are widespread protests in Iraq against high unemployment and widespread corruption. Over 100 people have been killed and thousands have been injured in clashes with the military police. This wreath is being laid by Nada Al-Obaidi, an Iraqi woman who is very proud to have recently gained her Canadian citizenship. Thank you so much. Our final wreath today. Our final wreath today is laid in memory of the many Japanese Canadians who were dispossessed and their communities destroyed due to forced internments during World War II. Laying the wreath today is Judy Hanazawa, president of the Greater Vancouver Japanese Canadian Citizens Association, an organization which has served Japanese Canadians since the 1950s. Today, the group focuses on anti-racism, human rights activism, and education, supporting community social and cultural events, and publishing a monthly news magazine with Canada-wide distribution. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank all our wreath layers. For some of them, coming out to lay a wreath in front of all you people has been a very brave act. And now I'd like to invite Earl Peach and the Solidarity Notes Choir to lead us in singing Song of Peace, Finlandia. The words are in your program, so please join in.
The words are on the back of your programs. Please join in. One more time. This is a song for people of all nations, a song of peace for lands afar and mine. Here is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as fine and true as mine. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover leaf and pine. But other lands have sunlight too, and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. So here's my song for people of all nations, a song of peace for your land and for mine.
Thank you so much.
You want to speak?
Before we conclude today, Joseph Roberts, editor of Common Ground magazine, is here to tell us briefly about the Bells for Peace project he's planning to commemorate the upcoming 75th anniversary of the atomic bombings of Japanese cities. Joseph, are you around?
Yeah, let's back here.
Okay. Slide on up.
Hello. Where do we go from here, folks? The 75th anniversary of Hiroshima coincides with the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. We're planning across the world to ring bells 75 times in churches, synagogues, shrines, fire halls everywhere. Now I want you, before you leave the park today, to please go look at the statue behind you. The statue there is of a Hiroshima survivor who lived in Vancouver, and her husband was living here too. And when she came here in 1954, she didn't talk about her experience at all. But in 1982, she spoke out. That was the first year we had the Walk for Peace here in Vancouver. I was happy to be part of the organizing team for that. So where does the Bells for Peace come from? It comes from one person. His name was Richard Fukuhara. He lived in Los Angeles. And he unfortunately died while working on this project, so it's up to us to make it happen. No one else is going to do it. I have papers I'll pass out to people. And he says, "Dear friends, please encourage fellow citizens, families, city mayors, and officials and clergy from all faiths to join the 2020 Bells for Peace campaign to unite the world for peace. On August 6th, during the Tokyo Olympics, all Olympic Village video screens will be tuned to the 75th Hiroshima atomic bomb anniversary ceremony, exactly 8:15 a.m., the time the atomic bomb nicknamed Little Boy exploded over Hiroshima in 1945. Every church, temple, and shrine bell will ring throughout Japan, and simultaneously bells will ring around the world to acknowledge a moment of remembrance, reflection, and prayer. Then, on the final day of the Olympics, At that exact time that fat man exploded over Nagasaki, every church, temple, and shrine bell throughout Japan will ring, and simultaneously in Vancouver and every other city in the world. The NK TV feed will be sent around the world. This will be a very special message and tribute to all the lives lost in the bombs. As you may know, our goal is to involve music and everybody else for this message of peace. The Olympic ceremonies will be watched by pretty much everyone in the world. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to abolish nuclear weapons and put an end to the plague of war. Please find out about it and participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. This concludes our ceremony today. Please take the time to take a closer look at the wreaths before you go. They'll be on display for another week outside the Memorial Centre for Peace on 16th near Burrard, and at the Vancouver Unitarian Centre at 49th and Oak. We want to give special recognition to our volunteers. Without the members of the working committee, the singers, sound men, wreath makers, posterers, and the many others who contributed tents, tables, and much time and effort, this event could not have happened. We'd also like to thank all the wreath layers, community groups, organizations, and politicians represented here for their willingness to take a chance on a new way of remembering war. This could not have happened without the imagination, the inspiration, the tireless work and dedication of Denis Leplan and Teresa Gagnier, co-founders of Vancouver Peace Poppies. And Teresa asks, please, can all the wreath layers go find her after these final words? Thank you. Please visit the information tent to sign the guest book or make a donation. Email comments and suggestions are most welcome. Thank you all so much for coming. Let's work in this next year in the name of peace everywhere and look to the day when we can say truly about war, never again.
Come forward.
They wouldn't hear your music and they pulled your paintings down. They wouldn't read your writing and they banned you from the town. But they couldn't stop you dreaming and the victory you have won. For you sowed the seeds of freedom in your daughters and your sons. In your daughters and your sons. In your daughters and your sons. They sow the seeds of freedom in your daughters and your sons. When your weary smile, it proudly hides the chain marks on your hands. As you bravely strive to realize the rights of everyone. And though your body's bent and low, a victory you have won. For you sowed the seeds of justice in your daughters and your sons. In your daughters and your sons. In your daughters and your sons. You sowed the seeds of justice in your daughters and your sons.
Well, I don't know your religion, but one day I will pray for a world where everyone can work and children can play. And though you never got your share of the fruits that you have won, you sowed the seeds of equality in your daughters and your sons. In your daughters and your sons. In your daughters and your sons. You sowed the seeds of equality in your daughters and your sons. And now your music's playing and the writing's on the wall. And all the dreams you painted can be seen by one and all. And now you've got them thinking and the future's just beginning.